Welcome back to another episode of The Pod Well Travelled by Seven West Media. I'm Penny Thomas and I'm a travel writer here at The West Australian. On today's show, we're going to hear from travel and motoring writer Olga de Moeller, who's just returned from a travel assignment to Mauritius. But before that, I'm actually joined by travel writer and cruising specialist Michael Ferrante, who's just returned from an exciting travel assignment as well in Finland. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, Penny. Really good to be with you.
I guess, can you tell me about the recent trip and where you were and sort of what you were getting up to?
Sure. I was a guest of Royal Caribbean and we travelled to a great little town called Turku, which is an industrial area of Finland, in southern Finland. And it's one of the major shipbuilding hubs of the world, and we visited the Meyer Turku shipyard there to see the brand new icon of the seas, the Royal Caribbean ship, in the final throes of construction.
Right.
Which was just, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, and you got a real sort of behind-the-scenes tour, is that correct?
Yes, we did. We actually jumped on board. We were in small groups because there was, I think, something like 70 of the world's travel media on this trip, and so we broke up into small groups. A couple of the head designers were our tour guides, which was great because it was particularly insightful about some of the behind the scenes, some of the technical aspects of the ship that really bore out over the tour. So we got to see basically the whole ship. It's in a nutshell, it's got 8 neighbourhoods, as they call them, on Royal Caribbean. Yep. It's a Royal Caribbean thing to have these neighbourhoods. So we got a sample of each of those 8 neighbourhoods on board. Now, it was interesting because I didn't expect to see so much of it covered over in plastic.
Okay.
It was quite different to what I was expecting, which was good in a way, but a lot of it was still wrapped up, being protected, obviously, from all the dust and flying metal and all sorts of things on a work site that happened. So, which is perfectly understandable because when it launches in a few months, they want it to be looking its best.
So it's just a few months away. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they've got I think about 5 months before the actual handover.
Yeah.
And it's about 70% complete
at
the moment. And on board, it really struck me that the thing that really struck me the most on the day was just how much still they need to do to complete the ship. So it's more of the technical, finer things that they're doing right now, which was great to see because there was like about 3,000 tradies on board.
Wow, that is a huge amount.
The average across the entire construction project.
Wow.
And there's tradies everywhere. So we were sort of ducking and weaving through our way through electrical cabling. Some of these stats, which I'll mention, are just incredible in terms of the finer details. We're walking through. There's 12,000 kilometres worth of electrical cabling alone. So there was a lot of that with the ducting and piping and so forth. Looked like it was falling from the ceilings, but they were still putting all that together. So there was welders and other tradies doing their craft on
so much work
on the ship, and it looked like there was still a lot to go. But they get through, from what we were told, about 1% of what's required construction every week. Mm-hmm. So when you think there's about 5 months before handover, so 1% a week's about 20%, 25%. So they're getting there, but it's a slow process, obviously, because everything's got to be done just right.
Yeah. So the attention to detail is really there. That's what you notice.
Absolutely, it has to be. It's a $2 billion plus investment,
huge,
from Royal Caribbean, which again just blew me away. I worked out that's almost 2 Optus stadiums.
Massive.
In terms of cost, just on one ship. And it's the first of their ships in the Icon class.
Okay.
So this is a brand new revolutionary type of ship, just with the types of amenities and technology on board. And apparently they've got the second one already on the production line at Turku. So they move quickly. There's a lot to do, but they move quickly. As I said, there was 3,000 workers on board on the day, and that was just the average for a normal working day on the ship.
Is it just the one ship in the shipyard as well, or are there other ones sort of nearby, or is it just one at a time?
There are others as well.
Wow!
So it's a whole precinct.
Yeah.
Basically, it could probably have its own postcode as the ship could.
Yeah,
it's that big
with all its neighbourhoods and things. Yeah.
Yeah. So Meyer Turku are a family company that have been around for, I think, 7 generations. So they're a massive operation. They've got 3 big shipyards around the world, so 2 in Germany and this one in Finland. So they're a company that Royal Caribbean have known and trusted for over 50 years. They built their first ship, the Song of Norway, back in 1970.
Wow!
So that's more than 50 years of a collaboration with the Meyer family on the ships, building the ships.
Yeah, which is really good to know. I guess there's a trusted partnership there.
Yeah, and I think given the scale and the complexity of this, these modern ships, I think that's a real advantage for Royal Caribbean. So it was. I've never done one of these shipyard tours before.
No, I don't imagine many people would. So it's really exciting.
It's one of these rare opportunities I got that I really jumped at because these sort of opportunities don't come around too often.
Yeah,
and I was privileged enough to be one of the world media invited on to Meyer Turku to see the Icon of the Seas being put together.
Built. Yeah, and as a travel writer with the sort of focus on cruising, what sort of blew you away about the experience? Was there anything that you were really sort of amazed by, besides, I guess, the scope and scale of the whole project?
Yeah, look, my expectations, I didn't have, I didn't really know what to expect because it's such a big project. Like I said, the one thing that surprised me, I was expecting to go on board and see everything, almost all done, but it was far from that. There was the mobile lifts on the outside of the ship, lifting workers up and down. There was, like I said, most of it was covered in plastic. There was a lot of dust and noise, and the smell of cut metal in the air and paint fumes in the air, and lots of cables and ducting falling from the roof, so to speak.
Yeah. Sounds like organised chaos in a way.
Yeah, it was organised chaos. So that was probably what blew me away.
Yeah.
But as an aside, the city of Turku as well is an amazing place. From what I've been told, I wasn't aware of this, but it was the old capital of Finland.
Yeah, right.
Back in the day. Now, of course, it's Helsinki, which I got to see a little bit of as well. But Turku is a fascinating place, and we got to meet the first female mayor of Turku in 800 years of the city's history on a bit of a tour last week. She addressed our group.
Is it a big sort of city as well? Or?
It's not a huge city, and it's quite compact, so you can pretty much walk around the whole place, which is just fantastic from a traveller's point of view, and just gold for travel writers like us that want to see a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
and it was just so user friendly from a point of view of just looking and admiring and taking photos and little videos here and there. It was such a cool place. And again, the one thing about Turku that just blew me away was I guess because it's an industrial place as well, you've got a lot of shipbuilding going on, a lot of other industries there as well, but the architecture was amazing. It was probably the best architecture in one place that I've ever seen.
Yeah, wow. It's so interesting because how you said it was the capital a long time ago. I wonder if that's probably why it has a lot of investment from, I guess, older buildings, or are there also newer sort of buildings around as well? Yeah,
there are the newer style buildings like, our hotel, for instance, but it kind of all melds in really, really seamlessly. But it's just got so much character.
Yeah.
And the architecture of the old buildings there that, hundreds of years old, Like I said, the detail, it looked to me, I mean, I'm no architectural expert, but it looked to me a lot of it was the Art Deco style.
Yeah.
But just, the intricacy of and the detail in these old buildings was just incredible. And some of the colours that they used back then to really to bring them out, pastel reds and blues and yellows and beiges and that type of thing, and mixed in with the whites. It was it really was an eye-opener. It was really enjoyable walking around Turku, or as they say, Turku.
Yeah, right.
So again, it looked as a place that had quite a bit of Russian influence because there's that history with at times Russian territories in the country, and like I said, used to be the capital of Finland as well, which I wasn't aware of before I went. So
you were there just recently. So what was the weather like in May? Was it?
Yeah, I brought a lot of cold weather gear because I was just looking up the long range forecast before I left. It looked really cold, like -3s and whatnot overnight, and chilly days of 6 degrees. But no, while we were there last week, it was actually, the weather was just fantastic. Not a cloud in the sky most days. Nice. And it was just wonderful. It was really good trip all up.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on in regards to shipyards?
Yes, I will be doing, the first story I'll be doing covers a lot of this sort of design and construction, how is it done type of thing in this Saturday's West Australian. And I'll be doing some follow-up on the actual really cool features of the Icon of the Seas, the nitty-gritty about all these neighbourhoods and what families, because it's a family-oriented ship.
Yeah.
So it's targeted very much to that market. So I'll be looking into just what are those really cool features for families can expect. But yeah, just some of the extra stats I've got. It's got 40 plus restaurants, bars and lounges. Like I said earlier, 8 neighbourhoods geared for families. And the really clever way of design, I think, for this ship that I noticed was, apart from the fact that all ages can enjoy it at the same time. So you say if you take a family of 2 or 3 kids and maybe one of the grandparents, everyone can have a good time all at the same time. And also pretty much the 24/7 activation they've got. It's really cleverly designed that way. So you've got normally, for instance, like a theatre space is empty and not used on a ship for X number of hours during the day. But the Aquadome, my favourite spot on the ship, which is, again, just a real revelation in terms of modern cruise ships. This thing's like 25 metres high by 50 metres wide, and it's a glass and steel dome, 673 panels of glass.
Wow.
And this is where you'll have entertainment 24/7, basically. Oh, and of course, I've got to mention the waterfall. If you've been to the Changi Airport, it's got a waterfall similar to that.
Wow.
Right in the middle.
On a cruise ship. Wow.
On a cruise ship, yeah. And it's 17 metres tall, so you can enjoy the sounds and the sights of a waterfall, nice and relaxing during the day. And like I said, with ocean views, and then at night time, that becomes a real activity hub. So you've got a range of different restaurants and bars and shops in that area as well, and some really cool things called pods. It's what they call the overlook area. So you've got pods where you can take your group or your family, and if you can grab one before everyone else, you can sit in a little pod together and have drinks. You can play some board games, and you've got a view of the theatre as well. Yeah. So you can watch the theatre shows from there. And something I'll be writing and talking more about is the actual shows and the technology involved with the shows. It's that they're aiming to produce the best stage shows in the world, full stop. It's, again, this is mind blowing, that the technology they've got, and they've gone, they've no expense spared. They've gone to pretty much every length to produce some amazing shows. They'll, just as a bit of a precursor, they've got, apart from the the water shows. They've got the waterfall as part of some of these shows. And they'll have not only their own shows with, their own characters and superheroes and that's the length they're going to with this, but they'll have cinematography as part of the stage shows as well. So it'll look almost like you're watching a film.
Yeah, right.
But a live film,
yeah.
if you know what I mean. So I'll have
lots
the
of layers
backgrounds with the cinematography projection, the really cool laser lights. They'll have flying aerial shows, so they'll have a couple of people flying around actually on top of the audience.
Yeah, wow.
Flying around doing that particular show, or even working on trying to create their own weather system in a lab somewhere at the moment. So they want to make like a proper tornado, a real tornado that comes from the ground. So these are the types of things that Royal Caribbean are doing.
Yeah, creating lots of experiences, it sounds.
Creating some amazing visual shows. So like I said, they've got some of their own shows that they're doing, some of the classics as well, like The Wizard of Oz, and Hairspray and some of those favourites.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the whole sustainability thing. It's their cleanest ship ever, and it's another step they're taking towards, eventually zero emission cruising. This is their first LNG ship. Now, it's still a fossil fuel, but it's a lot cleaner than your traditional marine gas oil run ships.
And I imagine they're sort of hyper aware of every sort of other thing that also goes into the ship and how to be sustainable.
Again, a fairly big step up from what they've been doing. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, sounds like it was really sort of a jam-packed trip that you got to do. And I guess for anyone that's listening and who is interested, Michael's stories will be published in The West Australian and online at thewest.com.au. Okay, welcome back to the show. Olga, how are you?
Thank you. Well, I'm just back from a week in Mauritius at the start of May, which is winter in Mauritius, and it's still 28 degrees. So a very warm winter.
Yeah, okay. And does it sort of stay like that for their entire winter?
Pretty much. The temperature doesn't vary that much between summer and winter. So, just take your summer clothes if you go, and maybe a jacket for the evenings, and you're set.
Yeah, right. So you've got to sort of be prepared, which
yes,
I think
exactly.
you were. So you flew from Perth to Mauritius directly.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that experience?
Yes, I flew with Air Mauritius. It's a direct 8-hour flight, very easy, no stopover. There are 2 services a week at the moment on Wednesdays and Sundays, and a third one is being added over the Christmas holiday period, I think starting in November for several weeks. So it's a very easy flight. And coming back, it's only about 6.5 hours because of the winds.
Okay.
So very easy, very doable, and very pleasant.
Okay. And once you were in Mauritius, I guess, what was the go there? Where did you stay? What were some things?
Well,
you got up to?
we went all around the island. We stayed in 3 resorts, 2 nights each, just to sample what was available. All of them were 2 were 5-star, 1 was 4-star. And then we went around the island doing sort of various things that people would, and there's a lot to do there. So it's not just sitting on the beach. There are various activities. We stayed on the west coast, southwest coast, and then moved up to the northwest coast, which is where you've got the nicest beaches. Well, actually, the whitest beaches are apparently right up in the north because they're coral sand beaches.
Okay.
Down south, and a lot of people tend to stay down south apparently because it's closer to the airport, but that is not as scenic. So if you're going, it's worth the effort just going to the southwest or the west coast.
Yeah. And how far is that from the airport? Is it that much longer?
Oh, look, when I asked, I was told it's an hour, but then you realise everything's an hour's drive in Mauritius, but that is so open-ended. It can be anything from 15 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the traffic. And the traffic can get very bad on the major thoroughfares, which is surprising because Mauritius is quite urbanised once you get outside the resorts.
Okay.
And quite congested getting into the capital. Yeah. So, bank on an hour, but it could be anything, but it is worth the trip.
Yeah, okay. And so that was probably maybe one of your favourite places, was the sort of areas further out?
I think so. Look, the West Coast, you get those gorgeous red sunsets that are just mesmerising. And on one occasion in particular, and this was the highlight of my trip, the boathouse keeper said, it's going to be a lovely sunset tonight. I'd just come back from snorkeling, so I thought, okay, I'll hang around. And I took some photos of the sunset, and it was gorgeous, and there was a jetty with a couple standing right at the end of it. And I thought, well, that's nice. Anyway, they kept standing, hugging and embracing, talking, and some of my colleagues were in the pool, and then speculation started as to, well, they're on a honeymoon. No, they're not. He's going to propose. No, he's not. Maybe they're trying to make up after an argument. Anyway, this went on, and then finally he gets down on one knee and proposes.
Oh, wow.
And there was a wonderful embrace and some quick thinking at our end. A call to room service. The wait staff took out 2 flutes of champagne on a silver platter. They turned around and waved. They were thrilled. And we got that on video and actually Bluetoothed it to them afterwards, and they were ecstatic. Can you imagine having that as a memento
on an evening like
that? It was a glorious sunset. He missed the moment of sunset. I think he was too nervous.
Okay.
So it was more at dusk, but it was a lovely proposal. A young Mauritian couple, they'd walked down the beach. They weren't staying at this particular resort. It's very expensive. The room I stayed in, it was the Oberoi at Turtle Bay. Okay. It's 5-star. My room, which was the entry level, I was told was €650 a night, which is about $1,000.
Okay.
It's lovely, very personal, nothing is too much trouble, absolutely gorgeous.
Nice, okay. And a great spot if people are thinking about proposing, I guess, as well.
Look, I think anywhere in Mauritius is a great spot to propose at sunset. Yeah. And, that was a very special moment for all of us. We all started crying.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah.
That is great. Okay, so the accommodation was, I guess, what you expected or even better?
Yes, it was. We stayed at a lovely 4-star resort as well. That was the first one. That's on the southwest coast at Flick on Fluck, as it's called, overlooking Tamarin Bay, the Sands Suite Resort and Spa. It's an hour's drive from the airport, and the airport is named after the country's first Prime Minister on independence from British colonial rule in 1968, which was fairly late to get independence. It's 4-star, very personalised service, lovely staff, big suites, only 90 in total. They're about 52 square metres.
Wow, okay.
Bulgari toiletries, and staff will help you unpack.
And this is a 4-star, did you say?
This is 4-star. Yes, it is 4-star. And
sounds 5 to me.
It does. Look, it was a 5-star experience in a 4-star hotel. It's owned by it's family owned, and absolutely lovely. And if you stay more than 7 days, your initials are embroidered on pillowcases.
Oh, how nice!
Yes.
That's a lovely touch.
Lovely touch. Then we moved on to the Paradise Beachcomber. That's part of a chain on the island. It's 5-star, but a big hotel. So you're looking at about 300 rooms.
Okay.
But it has a kids club, it's got a gym, it's got 6 tennis courts, 4 restaurants, and shuttle transport to get around because it's just too big. So you do have to hop out of the way of the shuttles when you're walking around. It's under a mountain called La Morne Brabant, which is World Heritage listed, and it was a refuge for runaway slaves until slavery was abolished in 1835. And many jumped into the sea to their deaths from this mountain. It's riddled with caves, and you can hike up the mountain. We didn't. And walk up the slave trail, which would be quite worth doing if you're staying there, to get that experience.
Yeah, right. Okay, so quite different experiences where you were in the different places.
Very different experiences. There's something for everyone. You can snorkel, scuba dive, go swimming with dolphins, go swimming with turtles. You can go to Casella Nature Park, which is where we went, and do quad bike riding through the open range safari. And you do have to wear appropriate clothing, and certainly not white, because the quad bikes go through puddles and you end up totally covered in mud.
Okay.
But when you stop, the zebras come up to you, and I've never been so close to a zebra in my life. They actually start gnawing on the handle bars of the quad bikes. I'm pretty sure they're being fed, around that time. They're very tame. The giraffes are quite tame, though they didn't come up to us. There's deer there as well. Lions, but they're in an enclosure, although I did hear them roaring when I did the zip line, which was totally terrifying because I don't like heights, but I thought, well, I'll do it anyway. The zip lining was actually okay. It was walking over a 200-metre suspension bridge over a valley about 70 metres up. But there were gaps in between the boards. So the gap was probably long enough for your foot to slip through. So you had to make sure that you walked over the gap. And I was totally terrified. And the one of the zipline operators was walking immediately in front of me, and he said, "Just don't look down."
Yeah.
So he made small talk about I don't know what, and then I said to him, "I can hear lions roaring. Are they going to eat me if I fall?"
That description just sounds really terrifying, but very exciting experience.
Look, it was a feel the fear moment and do it anyway type of thing. The zip lining was the easy bit. You just sort of zip down. It's quite straight, and I did look down.
Not into the lion's den, I hope.
Not into the lion's den, no. So we did 4 zip lines in total, but after you've done one, it's sort of second nature, really.
Okay, wow. Wow, that's very impressive. I'm really glad that you did the zip line. I don't know if I would have been able to if it's quite high up like that. So
yes, it was. It's the suspension bridge. That's the scary bit. Yeah, the zip lining is fairly straightforward. There are other zip lines, I believe, on Mauritius. That's the one that we did, and probably the most easily accessible one. What else did we do? We had lots of lovely food. We went to a lovely Creole restaurant called Escale Creole. It's actually a restaurant in a private home, and it's known as a resto. So a family home turned restaurant. It's run by Marie-Christine Forget and her mother, who I believe is 75 years old. And we had a gourmet menu there which showcased sort of typical Mauritian cuisine, and of course it's a melting pot that reflects all the waves of colonisation. Okay. So the French, the African slaves, over the years, and of course the Indians, because the Indians were brought in as indentured labour when slavery ended. To work the sugarcane fields. So there's a very strong Indian influence through the food. In fact, 52% of the population is Hindu.
Okay.
And then I think it's 17% Christians, then Muslims, and then Chinese Catholics. So largely a Hindu population. And what else did we do? We swimming, snorkeling. My snorkeling experience wasn't great. If you go snorkeling, really needs to be early in the morning when the tide is high.
But the clarity is good, or?
Yes, the clarity is good, though the section that I went snorkeling in, the reef was bleached. And I didn't see all that much, though a school of squids surrounded me, which was a lovely moment. They've got gorgeous green blue eyes, which I didn't realise. But look, there's lots and lots of water activities. There's a lot to do there.
Yeah, thanks for that, I guess, Olga. That sounded like a really good roundup of your recent trip. And for anyone that is interested, these will be published across our travel pages in the West Australian and the Sunday Times, and they'll also be uploaded online. But was there something else you wanted to add?
They will indeed. No. Look, there's lots to talk about, but I think that pretty much wraps it up.
All right. Well, thanks for your time this morning. We'll speak to you soon.